Hey everyone, I'm Robert. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about designing and printing an iPhone case with my new Teapot 3D 3D printer.
All right, you guys, so here's the demo. This is the case that I designed on Tinkercad, as you can see. I wanted to go ahead and show you the logo, which I ended up using for my phone case. Now, I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of how I designed it. Keep in mind, I did get the specs for the iPhone from the Apple website. I did have to make the cavity a little bit larger in order to fit the phone. And with Tinkercad, you're allowed to create a radius for your shapes, like the cube here that I'm using as the initial shape. Um, but the radius was too sharp at the corners. So what I ended up having to do was create this here to create the proper radius. So essentially, I took a cube, uh, added a kind of a donut, a filled donut um, disc with the proper height here that'll actually allow me to fit the phone. And then took that as a negative out of the corner there, created a, uh, again, a whole negative, uh, and placed those on each one of the four corners of the cube. Now, once I combined those five shapes, I went ahead and created the negative, centered that into essentially a bigger solid version of the same shape in order to get the shape of the phone case. Um, as you can kind of see here, I'm kind of having to mess with it a little bit and make sure I get everything lined up properly. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to show you the uh, essentially that I use the same shape. Now you can kind of see here on the top there, I used a different cube in order to create a uh, the hole in the case for the face of the phone to fit through. Um, Now what you'll see here is that I've got the holes lined up for the speakers on the left and right hand side here. In the center, that's the charging port, so I made that one a little bit larger and make sure it was going to fit. Now, what I did in order to get all the buttons and holes lined up properly uh, is I took the dimension sketch from uh, the Apple website and went ahead and um, took that into Adobe Illustrator, created an STL file that I was able to import, and then I kind of used that as a guide for where the buttons were going to be, where the charger hole was going to be, all of that kind of stuff. Now, kind of what I'm trying to show here is how I kind of grouped everything together. Now, you can kind of see that these buttons that I added to the case, uh, they are in the right spot, but in order to get them to function properly, what I had to do was group the negative space, the exterior phone case, and the buttons all together, right? Now I'm just keeping it red here just so that it's easier to decipher and everything kind of stays uniform. Now, you can see here that I have these negative spaces for the camera hole as well as under the buttons here. All right, so what I'm trying to do is take this negative space. I'm going to go ahead and add in the camera hole here as well. But these two negative spaces and combine those with the exterior case. So that gives me a little bit of a gap so the buttons will fit properly. Now, what you'll see here is within that, there's a small solid uh, cube kind of shape that I used in order to be able to actually use the buttons so that it would function properly. So I went ahead and grouped everything together, right? At this point, I'm just adding the logo to it. And again, the logo is in negative. I went ahead and added that to the bottom of the phone case, and you'll be able to see here that the phone case at this point is ready to print. Now, it did take me a couple of tries in order to get everything to fit properly, so I had a couple of test prints, but overall, this is what I found to be the best way to do that. Now, I exported the file into Prusa Control. Right, you can see here, import the file. Went ahead and selected the file, which is here, the Stunning Rotus. And then what I like to do is I like to keep it horizontal, so I orient it 90 degrees on the Z-axis. Now, you choose your material, the quality, which is essentially the thickness of each layer, and the infill. And I do a 10% infill to give it a little bit of hollow space so it has a little bit of cushioning for the case, for the phone protection. Now, it does take a little bit of time to generate the file because it actually lays out what each layer is going to do. But once it finishes here, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I added the layers so I could change materials and give myself the different colors for the case. So as you can see here, I'm going to go layer by layer so that you can kind of see how the program creates in order to print the phone case. So in total, this case itself is about 10 millimeters high. All right. What I did was I allowed for, I believe it was 3 or 4 layers of the base color, which I do in a hard plastic. The hard plastic makes it a little bit easier to peel off of the bed because the rubber tends to get really sticky, the rubberized material, and it tends to stick really badly. Then I added another few layers for the black, which I used for my logo. And then from there up, it's actually going to print in the rubberized material. So here's the time lapse of the print. You can see that I laid down the red first. It's actually a red PLA, then a black PLA, and then following that with a rubberized material in order to help with protection as well as grip and overall flexibility for the phone case.
Alright you guys, so I went ahead and finished up the phone case. Now, you may have noticed at the end of the time lapse there, it shows that there's quite a bit of stringiness. That happens a lot with this rubberized material. I'm using a TPE that I bought over at Micro Center, but it is a very common issue with any of these rubberized type materials. Now, as you can see, the phone case came out pretty good. It did take a little bit of cleanup, but you can see that the logo's there, right? Website, that all came out pretty good, good detail, right? The holes all line up for the camera, for the flash. You can see the buttons on there, right? Space for the silence function, and as well as the charger holes and speaker holes. Now, the way that I cleaned up most of the phone case, I essentially pulled off a lot of the stringiness. It's really thin, so it breaks off fairly easily. And then for the parts that were kind of little bits left over, I kind of used just a lighter. I try to use a torch lighter because that works a little bit better to kind of just burn those off. It tends to work pretty well. I mean, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of stringiness left going on in there. It kind of gets you a little bit more light. As far as the PLA that I'm using, I tend to use either this 3D Fuel PLA that I picked up. Actually, I think this is the one that came with the 3D printer. Works really well. Price-wise, it's a little bit more expensive. So a lot of the PLA that I have is actually from Micro Center, like this blue one here. The Micro Center PLA is a little bit more cost-effective. It's about $20 for a kilogram spool. Now, for the TPE, which is the rubberized material that I've been using, it's about $15 to $20. It might be about $20 for a half kilogram spool, so it's a little bit more expensive, but it does work really, really well. Again, you know, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and feel free to leave them down in the comments. The other thing too is I'm going to leave the links for the Teapot 3D printer, for the Slicer program, Tinkercad, all of that stuff down in the description down below. And again, you guys, please like and subscribe, and hope you guys learned something, and good luck.